In this short tutorial I want to talk about text objects. These are text lines, words and glyphs. If you have a text region, of course you have the text in there with text lines, but I want to talk about text line objects which have an outline and so a location on the page clearly defined, and there are use cases where you need that for OCR training and so on. I will concentrate on text line objects, but most of what I say is also true for word objects and glyph objects, which are the smallest unit. I will just go through the toolbar more or less in the order as everything appears. A text line has a polygon as outline, and typically it would be part of a text region. Doesn't have to be though. So if you already have text lines, you can do the usual manipulations with editing the polygon or resizing, moving and so on. If you don't have text lines yet, there are a few tools which help you create text lines. One is a split tool which uses the foreground components of the bitonal black and white image to create new text lines as you go along. So you can either use a horizontal split line if you position the cursor inside the text region, or if in more complex cases you can draw a line yourself. And so there are two tools. One tries to split around the components, so if you overlap a little bit it doesn't matter, but that doesn't always work, as in these cases where the two text lines are connected. Then you can use the other tool, which is the cut tool, and that works very similar. We just have to be a bit more careful because it really cuts through the foreground components, but essentially it does the same thing. And after splitting, also a shrinking is applied if you want to. If you don't want to, you can disable that. The initial line feature, you only need that if there's only one text line in a text region, or you can just do that and then split. So the initial line creates a text line the same size as the parent text region. You can also use the shrinkers as you have them for text regions. So if I create a rectangle here, then you could use this shrinker to shrink wrap around the foreground. And you can also use the select component thing and then create a text line around that. And finally you can also just create rectangles and polygons as you see fit. Again, usually I would create text regions first and then inside create text lines. You don't have to, and the text lines can be outside as well. Depends on your use case. So if you have a text line segmentation method and for some reason you get two text lines where there should be one, you can use the merge feature. The adjust outline is something where you can either adjust to child word objects or to the parent objects. So if I create a rectangular text line here and then select the adjust to parent region, it would cut it down to fit the parent region. Then you can also simplify again, say convert it to a bounding box style again. Baselines are the bottom lines, usually without the descenders, and you can define them as you see fit. It's pretty straightforward. There's this kind of snap to the bottom feature as well. You can add and delete points very quickly, and then you can view this baseline or hide it again if you don't want to see it. If you're not interested in the polygons and only interested in the baselines, you can create the baseline with a very rough automatically created polygon. Again, depends on a use case, so it will only create a bounding box style based on the line distance to the other baselines. So it won't be perfect, but if you're not interested in the polygons, you get the baselines and some crude polygons. Text line detection. So this is an integrated method in Aletheia. It works okay, but I would very carefully check the results. I wouldn't rely on this to be perfect. And you can also use the integrated OCR, so Tesseract, in most cases to do the same thing, also get a text in this case. And you can also run OCR on a selected or multiple selected text lines using the language you like and Tesseract engine. I mentioned you would usually have a region. If you go the other way around and you create your ground truth from the bottom up, so from glyphs to words to text lines to regions, you can do that as well. So in this case you would want to select the text lines which belong to one region, and then you can create that region and it will be there, correct size. In some cases you want one parent region for each text lines, then you can do that as well, and you get multiple parent regions. We already talked about attributes, so every text line has multiple attributes like language, script, spacings, font attributes, custom attributes. So I won't talk about that in more detail here. Okay, text content. You can define the text content for text lines as well. So not only text regions can have content, obviously, but also text lines. The thing is, it depends on your use case where you want to store this text, right? So if you want just the text blocks, then store it in the regions. If you need it for OCR training, you can store it in the text line objects. You can also propagate the text from one to the other and vice versa. So this is text propagation tool. So once you have the text in one level, you can easily propagate it to all the other levels as you need it. Text overlay just gives you an overlay on the image. The text line order is a very specific way of defining which text line comes after which other text line. So what you do is you can just define the order, but in this case you can also rely on the default order, which is specified by the region really. This is more for very complex ordering of text lines where it's not clearly top to bottom. And finally you have some ways to explore all the text lines in the document. So you have the hierarchy of text regions and text lines. If for some weird reason you have a region and your text line does not belong to that region yet, so usually you can, in a region, if you select the highlight shouldn't, you see which text lines belong to that region. If for some reason a text line was created somewhere else and is not connected to a region yet, say you move the outline and then the region is not automatically updated, so this is not highlighted now, then you can select that text line, say reassign, and then you see if it's worked or not, and if you go back now it will be part of the region. That's it really.